My name is Pat Fabian. I'm Trump County Commissioner and Chair of the SBC board. Today's Monday, today's, you guys from Lawrence County. So I keep all shut up today. So again, today's Monday, February 24th. Welcome. I'm going to call the meeting order. We do have a quorum between what's present in the room physically and what we have online. At this time, any conflicts of interest declarations on any of the action items? Not hearing any, we're going to move along. Need a motion on the minutes from December 16th, 2024. Motion. Bench, second. Thank you, Chris. Any questions on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No public comment come before the board at this time.
Done.
I just like to comment. We had many of the commissioners in the room and some who have returned home had a nice meeting. We were hosted by the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier today and started to go over some pre-draft plans for 2026 when the NFL draft comes to Pittsburgh. So that's it was really exciting to be part of that conversation at the region and looking forward to that conversation as they finish up here in Green Bay in April. It'll be all eyes on Pittsburgh and the 2026 draft out for that. So and thank you for everybody participating today. Moving on to our executive director, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it was a great meeting we had today, and I think there'll be a lot to come out of it in the days to come. As you said, after the Green Bay, the NFL is really excited about being here, and we're certainly excited to have the 500,000 or so people that'll be descending upon southwestern Pennsylvania next April, in addition to the millions of people that'll be watching on TV as our region really and city of Pittsburgh becomes real focus. I want to talk about just briefly a few things today. We gave out the Joe James Award last week, and for those of you that might not be aware of that, that is an award that's awarded by this organization for really a lifetime of service in municipal and local government. We gave that to Chris Blackwell. You see the picture up there from Penn Hills, over 30 years of service there. So if you have any nominations for this year, that was for the 2024 year. If you have any nominations of folks in your community, please get to us and let us know. It was a special night. We did it with Troy Rupp. The local government academy, they were the ones that really kind of put the name forward and brought that to us. I also want to let you know that Chuck Colling will talk about this. I did go to the budget address a few weeks ago. It was pretty interesting to hear some of the things that are being planned. Those of us that worked last year on lobbying on behalf of sites and things like that, in addition to broadband, a lot of that was discussed, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. Also, many of us have been interested in the area of Pittsburgh Trail. We had a nice meeting last week with Congressman Kelly, who convened a meeting up in Titusville, along with Senator Hutchinson, in trying to get, I think it's about 73% of the trail is done now. And as we try to get put in for a raise grant that the congressman is going to be helping us work on, will be very important for things along those lines. Chairman mentioned the NFL draft and all the things that can be brought about. For those that weren't at the meeting, it really hit on a couple of places. Number one, obviously, there will not be enough hotels in the city of Pittsburgh or even in Allegheny County alone to handle the influx of folks that will be here for those 3 or 4 days. So working with your convention of visitors and tourism bureaus, working with Jared Walker from Visit Pittsburgh, coordination that can be done along those lines. A transportation, and then Lily can touch upon that a little bit, but your local transit agencies, you're not going to be able to just drive in and easily move around with that many people coming into town. So working coordination with shuttles is going to be very important. And then for your local businesses, the NFL really wants to have local regional businesses get the work that's going to have to be occurred. So WebGen Lasser and our team reaching out to your economic development folks. So for vendors in your counties, they can participate and get their name on the list of all the things that will be done there. So it's a great opportunity, and that conversation will continue. Many of you have talked over the last couple of weeks regarding the opportunities around data centers. I've been asked to join the AI strike team, the artificial intelligence strike team that's working on many of the bids and many of the sites. And I'll appreciate that you've already gotten to us, and we're going to certainly pass those on and put those into the bids. There's a long list of things that need to be done, the amount of acreage, Act 2 clearances, the amount of water, floodplain, all kind of things that need to be done, and getting those out to your economic development department folks will be, and planning departments will be very, very helpful along those lines. We do plan on going again to Harrisburg in May when the East and West Allegheny Conference and the Philly Chamber put on their annual event. I think it was very successful last year for us to be there. We want to make sure, that we plan on that again. Finally, and you'll hear from some of this from Lily, Lily Dobreski, our transportation director, on, what we need to do as far as maybe some of the changes that will be coming down with some of the federal requirements. And she'll go into a lot of that. And the last thing before I turn it back to Mr. Chairman, or open up for any questions, is just today, the CFA multimodal awards came out. Looks like we got about 40 projects in the 10 county region for about $16 million worth of projects. And that's the CFA multimodal grants that were awarded today. And with that, that's my report. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Rich. All right, we're going to move along on the agenda item here. We're going to move along to our transportation report. Lily.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so we're going to try to move through some of these action items that we have for you quickly. Then I'm going to give my report at the end with some updates as Rich brought up. So we have 2 resolutions and accompanying presentations, and then 1 presentation update on our federal performance measure. And then we have a presentation for our data. So we're going to try to just go right through those, and then I'll do the rest of the report. So I'm going to pass it over to Devin and Toby and Betsy to discuss the Southwestern Pennsylvania Public Transit Human Services Coordinated Transportation Plan. And this is a federally mandated plan that we have to put together. They've been working on this for about a year, so I'll let them give the rest of the context. Yep, I'm not so sure about this microphone, but Devin, I'll let you.
Sure, thank you. Devin White, manager of transit programs here at SBC. As Lily said, we've been working on this plan for about the last 6 months to a year. This plan really looks into how public transit works for 3 distinct categories: our disabled, low income, and our elderly. And with that, I'll pass it off to Betsy, one of our participation people with this plan.
Thanks. Betsy Zhang with McCormick Taylor. So we sort of led it. We were very much assisted by Rockland Planning. Toby here, he's going to kick things off. Also on our team with WSP and e-Holdings that helped public involvement.
Just to talk briefly about what is Human Service Transportation Plan. It's a plan required by the Federal Transit Administration. It is really looked at identifying barriers and challenges for people with disabilities, for senior citizens and people with lower incomes, and getting access to and using public transportation services. And the intent of the plan is to make sure that all your transportation is coordinated in the region, identifying where those barriers and challenges are, and identifying actions on how you can kind of overcome those barriers and challenges. It all opens the doors up so you can continue to draw down and pursue federal 5310 funds.
So yeah, that's the cover from the 2019 plan. So this is an update of that, and feeling good. Fun. Toby went through this things of why you have to do it. So you go to the next slide. So as you'll see there, these plans started in 2008, it's updated in 2011, 2015. It coincides with the long range plan. A lot of things have changed since 2019. Everybody knows that.
So we went into the plan, and you can go to the next slide, and confirmed. This is sort of an overview of what's in the plan. I'm going to hit these really quickly as I run through here. All the different chapters in the plan. Do you want to go to the next slide? We started out with a steering committee and kind of talked about the vision. This is a new vision from 2019. So we did feel like the old vision was sort of dated, so we updated that a little bit. The steering committee helped pull that together. You know, the next slide. So the 2019 plan had a very large planning framework in there. If you look back at it, there were a lot of strategies. We kind of kept all those in a plan. They still do apply. But we ended up kind of with more needs and gaps plan and then specific strategies, not long planning strategies. We also did review existing plans and reports from the region and made sure that we were getting any needs from out of those plans. Yeah. All right. So one of the big parts of the plan, and this was spearheaded by SBC, was looking at the core beneficiaries of the plan. So there you will find in the appendix of this plan maps. There's about 10 per county. And it goes after the low-income people, the elderly, and the people with disabilities. So there are maps for each of those categories in the back of the plan that are very detailed. This is just the overview map. This is kind of just an overview. This is in the report as well. Those three groups I mentioned, and there is a lot of overlap with the groups. So as you'll see there, you know, there are about 20,000 people in the region that fit into all those categories. Next one, in overall, this is just a snapshot at looking at all the counties and then comparing that to the U.S. and Pennsylvania. And you know, you can see that there are a little bit more seniors in our region. Disability, you know, is a little higher than the national average, and then below poverty, we, you know, have actually a little richer than part of the United States. Next slide. This is the population change. So we looked at all of this. You can kind of see this compared the SBC region as a whole and then by county. So all these demographics are in there. Next slide. Then these are examples of those maps I was talking about that are in the back. This is just Allegheny County. So this is population overall, and then population density. And then the next slide actually takes those two things and compares them. I don't know, Devin, if you want to. Russell took a...
Sure, I can run this through a little bit. The green in this map shows a high density of population, while the blue shows a high density of senior populations. So it shows not just where people are living, but where these specific populations are living.
Yeah, so for each of our target groups, you'll find these maps in the back of the report. And next slide. Transportation today, it's just an overview. You can find that in the 22-23 Pennsylvania Public Transportation Report. So I basically just reuse that data. That's in the report. Next one. Public outreach. As I said, we had a steering committee. We did a survey. We had about 1,700 responses. And we held focus group meetings with each of those agents, like those groups, the senior citizen group, a low-income population group, disabled population group. We heard really great information back from those people. And a lot of our goals and the needs that are included in the report came from these focus groups. And of course, this was all run through the TOC. The next slide. So assessment of transportation needs, really what's wrong out there? What are the gaps? What is the region not doing well? Like I said, a lot of that's subjective. We heard that from the survey and from those focus groups that can be subjective. But we also saw a lot of really interesting things from the demographics. So we want to, get ahead of some of those trends. Some of these bullets that are on here are just, sort of some of the interesting things I think that we saw that we actually included as a need in the coordinated plan. Next slide. Again, these are just some of those trends we saw with the demographics that we thought were interesting and were pulled out. All right.
So we have strategies to address some of those gaps. They're broken into 3 categories: how to coordinate services better. Then there's a series of mobility strategies, and then some on communication, training, organizational outreach. And then there's a series of subtask, there is a matrix in here. Go to the next slide. It's just a sample of that. Identifies what some of the high level actions are or could be to address some of those challenges that have been identified. And then later we put an action plan framework in the plan, and the Transit Operators Committee is going to work with SBC to assess priorities out of this matrix, put them into an action plan, assign responsibilities, and begin to pursue implementation of the plan.
I think that's the implementation. So that's no kind of things ever done.
Sure. But the last point here is that this comes adopted by the Transit Operator Committee or endorsed by the Transit Operator Committee. And that includes this implementation. So the Transit Operator Committee will be meeting yearly to talk about the progress of this plan, as well as multiple times throughout the year to develop that meeting.
Yeah, so just in summary, I think some of the high level points for those of you, we're trying to keep this brief, but, I know that it's hard to read what's on the slides then. This report, it looks at something I think we're all aware of, that our population is getting older, that we're going to need to take additional steps to deal with those changes in population. A lot of the solutions in the plan are things that we're, covering across the board: gaps in broadband, issues with finding matching funds, how to coordinate service better. So again, this document in full was sent out to everyone on Tuesday, so everyone should have received the document. This was endorsed for adoption by the commission, by the Transit Operators Committee, who's been kind of overseeing this entire process. So now I'll pass it back to the chairman to look at the action item for the resolution.
Before we get into the action item part of it, does anybody have any questions for Lily or her team behind the spoke? All right, moving along, we do have a action item, agenda item number 6, resolution 2-25 to approve the 25 update, the Transit Human Service Coordination Transportation Plan, other known as CTP. Looking for a motion for discussion.
Motion.
Thank you, Leslie. Looking for a second. Thank you. Any discussion on it? Any questions for the team? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm not there. This is Barb. I just wanted to thank you for putting this together. This is, obviously public transit is something that's very important to me and of course, Allegheny County. But one thing I did want to ask, just sort of in your, is there any kind of like future looking, because while I definitely understand that like the current need of course is the most among our seniors and our low income folks who don't have cars. I really feel like looking toward the future, if this region, and that I think includes all of our counties, if we want to compete with the tri-state area and with, Silicon Valley, the Bay Area. And if we want to continue to be a place where people come from those areas, right? Because I know that, we're trying to grow our industry and there are folks who find this region attractive because it's so much, more affordable to live. But, folks who are coming from those regions, they do not want to, and this is a nonpartisan thing, right? The folks who come from those regions do not want to have to live in their car. They do not want to have to, spend an hour to an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours every day commuting in their car. They want that. They want that public transit option, whether they're living outside of Pittsburgh and coming into work, or whether they're in the city, or whether they're even crossing county lines. So I was just wondering if you all thought about that, or were considering that, or heard about that in your analysis. And then second is just for the rest of the folks in the room, obviously the governor, I know I spoke with Rich about this, the governor has this transit proposal on the table to really boost transit funding. We're going to need folks from not just our super blue regions to be supporting this. We're going to need it from all of our regions. And if there are folks here, who have heard from their own business districts, from their own, in their own counties about the need to be able to get people to our work locations who don't have vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, those are great points. So for context, this plan it's mandated by FTA to cover those populations that we discussed. So that's why those populations are the ones that are addressed in the report, and it's targeted. It's not, addressing transit as an entire entity. But a lot of the work that the Transit Operators Committee does address issues like that and looking for better coordinated service and increasing options for transit and looking at different ways to identify, more consistent funding for transit. So that's absolutely something that we are working on and looking at. It's just that this plan, the mandate for this plan is to cover those specific populations from FTA for this funding.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, not hearing any. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. And then I believe, Lily, I'm going to kick it back to you to talk about the next action item, but I believe there's a presentation before we do that.
Yeah, this is a shorter presentation. So this is for our public transit agency safety plan for our commute info regional van pool program. Again, this is something that we're mandated to have in place to receive our FTA 5307 funding to operate this van pool. This is something the commission has adopted in the past. It hasn't changed at all, I believe. Anthony can clarify that. But we're required to receive regular approval to continue operating this program. So I'm going to pass it over to Anthony.
Thanks, Lily. Thanks, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and the commission guests. Thanks for being here with us today. So the Public Transit Safety Action Plan is a requirement, as Lily had alluded to. And our particular program, the Commute Info Program, is a van pooling program and does qualify under FTA regulations as a transit program. So therefore, we are required to provide a public transit safety action plan. Our program is a little bit different than what you see in your counties in that our program is a contracted service. We do not hire the individuals that are working within it. We do not purchase the vehicles. We contract the service through a partnership with Commute with Enterprise. So Commute with Enterprise put together this safety action plan, and we had the opportunity to review it internally and are in agreement with it. And this safety action plan will suffice for our friends at the FTA. The elements of the plan and the purpose of this document overall was to establish and document system safety policies and procedures, establish a coordinated and documented process to implement the safety plan itself, and to identify and delegate safety functions and responsibilities to certain Commute with Enterprise team members as they are our partner in this. So this actual plan you were given with your packet, I believe, last week as it went out. The following safety elements are addressed within safety policies and responsibilities: vehicle and equipment standards and procurement criteria, operational standards and procedures, van pool coordinator and driver selection, driving requirements, vehicle coordinator orientation, vehicle maintenance, safety data management, among other things. So we're here today asking for your approval of our safety plan. That's all I have. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, thank you. I'd just like to comment. I know Commissioner Shea and myself were, and our executive director not so long ago were talking to a company, and this was a viable option and a positive for that company to get his employees to a new location, potentially in Armstrong. However, it didn't work out. This is one thing that they felt comfortable with. It was a viable option for them to get their employees from one population site to another. So if moving forward, if approved, we have questions, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Lily and use it for part of your toolbox when you're talking to companies, and because it could have an impact in your respective county. So agenda item 7. Looking for action on 3-25, a resolution to the public agency safety plan for Commute Info regional van pool program. A motion?
Make the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comments? At hearing any, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, moving along to agenda item 8, safety measures update with Evan.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So for this one, we do not need an action item. This is just an update on our intention for our performance measure 1, which addresses safety. So we're just presenting this to the group with our plan, which is Evan will ultimately present to you, is to adopt NOx targets. So I'm going to pass it over to him.
This.
Thanks, Lily. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
So, as a performance requirement to carry out the HSIP program, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, SPC, has to agree on a safety final rule, the 5-year rolling average for the number of fatalities on all the public roadways in the region, the rate of fatalities on those public roadways per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, the rate of the serious injuries on the public roadways, the rate of those serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and then the number of non-motorized and fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries in the region. So for the performance measures, the MPO targets, we have 2 options. They are to either agree and support the state DOT targets, or we can establish our own numerical targets based on the 5 planning areas there. So the considerations for the performance goals are that SPC or the PennDOT is asking SPC to continue to support the 2-year annual reduction for fatality goals. We know they changed from last year. And then PennDOT is also asking us to continue to support the 0% reduction in serious injury goals. They changed from last year as well. So when we review the 2023 percentage change versus 2022, we can see that the vehicle miles traveled in the SPC region has increased slightly at 3.5%, or sorry, 3.3% in the region compared to 3.5% statewide. The fatalities statewide have increased 2.5%, whereas in the SPC region, they have decreased 1.25%. The serious injuries have decreased in the SPC region by 3.5%, whereas in the state, they have increased by 7.8%. Does. The more concerning factors here are that the non-motorist fatalities have increased in the SPC region. Compared to the state, they've increased almost 13% more. And then the serious injuries in the SPC region have increased 4.4%, whereas in the state, they've increased by 12%. Look up here at the actual figures from 2021 to 2023. Those are our fatality numbers, 206, 212, and 203. The 5-year rolling average is calculated as a 2% reduction for the last year, that 203. We're looking at 1.98.94 and then 194.96 in 2025. Set the SPC target at 202.98. Serious injuries, as you can see, with the 0% reduction would be the 939. Let's set that 2021 to 2025 average at 966.4. As we look at the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, the figures listed there are the actual figures. Down below, we have the fatalities followed by the serious injuries. So the values in 2024 would be a 2% reduction to those fatalities and a 0% reduction in the serious injuries, which gives us the 121.42 and the 120.85 for the SPC target at 121.65. As you can see on this chart, tracking those years, we've kind of hit a plateau where we're slightly decreasing again here. Our goal is to hit 130.2, 50% reduction in fatalities by the 2027-2031 year. Does anybody have any questions on the performance measures? Chris?
Thanks. Question I have on go back to that last slide, please. So the plateauing is going on here, and question I have on that is, are there any considerations that are taken in the projects that SPC is programmed to try and reduce that through redesign, re-engineering before that project just the final design construction, so that we're thinking about roadway construction as part of meeting this performance measure, particularly as it relates to, I think, the non-motorist fatality side of things.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think one of the benefits that we've seen over the last few years is that there's a better cooperation with the PennDOT districts. Like during in the preliminary phases of design, they take into account some of our considerations from previous road safety audits, whereas low-cost safety countermeasures have been incorporated in some of these projects, whereas in the past we may not have seen those incorporated. At least had that collaboration with the state at the earlier stages. Kind of like when the projects were further along, we would have suggestions that might not have been able to be incorporated. Now it seems like that we're making progress on that front, so we feel strongly that we're actually getting some of these proven safety countermeasures incorporated. There's obviously always room to program those into more projects. So we're hoping that by seeing some of those benefits early on, we can roll that into a more fully integrated program. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one on slide 38, the SPC non-motor fatalities. What specifically, I mean, what's the data showing? Like, what are we looking at? It's not motor. I mean, is it bike? I mean, pedestrian?
Yeah, so it would be pedestrians and bicyclists. So traditionally, that's considered a vulnerable road user. They're kind of grouped together based on the protections that they have, compared to the rest of the motorized vehicles.
I just want to add that the state definition of correct me if I'm wrong here is pedestrians, bicyclists, and mobility users.
That's correct.
So that's the state definition. When we're doing our regional safety action plan, we do also include motorcycle users in that definition because they're obviously very, very impacted by crashes. So we also look at that group in our internal planning purposes.
Sure.
Given reporting accuracy challenges with particularly active transportation users, usually unless there's a report file, it doesn't really show up. Any thoughts on the accuracy of those numbers to sort of caveat with what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some variability in the crash report statistics and, what we kind of find. And another thing that we're missing here, I know we've spoken on this before too, is like the near miss data. There's a lot of things that occur before a fatal crash occurs a lot of times, especially if it's a VRU crash where you have, near misses, things like that. And really excited about the Velo SBIR grant where we're actually have a means to collect some of that data. Traditionally in the past, that type of near miss data was just like a case by case. Sometimes people reported to the police whether or not they do. I know that there was some 311 data in the past where they had gotten reports, but not necessarily what was passed down to me was a Word document that had basic, locations, a street out of street. Whether or not that was, who knows how many years in the making that happened, but, just kind of getting some real data on some of that, I think is going to help us try to address those issues a little bit better. Any other questions?
Last call for having questions. All right. Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to agenda item 9, traffic accounting, which is exciting if you're into traffic accounting. All right.
You know, that was going to be
Designed to come, so we're pumped.
no. And you turn it down. Like, we parked down up there, how? It's not that. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. My name's Porter Combs. I manage our traffic monitoring program, which it's called HPMS, Highway Performance Monitoring System. So it was developed in 1978. It's a national level, so every state is collecting the same data at the same time, so it's all consistent, right? So basically, we're collecting information on our nation's roadways, state roadways, federal roadways, all public roadways. So with traffic jam, we're obviously traffic, but there's other programs that are running or curves or tracking or anything that has to do with a roadway segment. So again, HPMS purpose is to support data-driven processes with the FHWA, the DOTs, and the Congress. So, for instance, when a bridge needs replaced, what's the first question they ask? How much traffic? Right? There's a high safety corridor, bank crash happened. Well, how much traffic is coming in? We want a traffic signal. Well, how many people are feeding the intersection? Right? So that's kind of where the basis or the root of all the planning and where the monies are assigned based on the traffic, the type of traffic, right? So we'll go into that a little further. So we're involved. We've been doing this since 1987. We have over 5,000 unique sites in our region. A site is usually a quarter mile on a state highway between two other state highways. So they could be varying distances. We have over 20,000 ground locations since 1987. So we work through PennDOT through the UPWP. That's how we're funded. PennDOT gives us the directives each year. So how it's going. So every year we get 348 counts scattered throughout the region. Some counties we get more, some counties are other. In addition to SBC, there are 7 other vendors that PennDOT contracts out. So I'll show you a map of where we're counting, but it doesn't mean that the other areas that aren't being counted. We're just on board. So in addition to the PennDOT ones, we support other programs here, right? Like I said, with there's a bad crash or whatever, they might want to know what's updated data on collecting streets or whatever. Trying to think of other projects we have. I know, Broadhead Road we did a couple of years ago where they wanted to put a signal in on a side street, but PennDOT won't do that unless there's enough traffic feeding the intersection. So things like that where people think, oh, we need this is important. And then the data doesn't really show what they think it should show. Everybody, we always comment that everybody always thinks their road is the highest traveled road in the region. So everybody thinks, we had a guy on Allegheny River Boulevard tell us there was 1 billion cars a day. It banged. So we collect data through March through November. I'm actually starting our first day.
I'm OPOT, so I do know what you're saying.
I just need for it, not a million. So we just you're right. So anyway, so we collect data March through November. So we start Monday is the first day we can collect data. So I guess that's why we're having this first attention. Where they collect Mondays through Thursdays because they figure Friday is atypical. We used to not count on Mondays, but
like 2019, they determined that Monday was a viable count day, which is kind of weird because that would mean we'd have to go out on Sunday. But anyway, so no holidays, things like that. We take a couple of days off or on holidays. So trying to collect, the idea is to collect the most perfect data, the perfect time of year, right? So not on Christmas, the winter time, whatever. So we collect data in 3 different ways. The most popular way is by machine counter. So these are machine counts. So you've probably seen these tubes across the road you run over. A lot of people think to collect the speed of the speed traps or you're going to do with it. But no, we're just counting traffic. This is obviously our most common collection. We collect 24-hour data. So midnight to midnight. We have volumes data, which means they just want to know how many people, they don't care which way they're going. They just want to know how many. We do classification data, which you can see on the screen here. So the machines will classify the vehicles into 13 different classes, which is defined by the FHWA. So again, we got to, not only how much traffic, what type of traffic, right? If you have 20,000, coal trucks a day, that's different than having 20,000 on the cities, right? So that's how that money off the roadway performs, or the life of the pavement, all that goes into why we're collecting this data and why this data is useful. So machine counts are definitely our most common count. We also have another method. So here's some nice pictures we have. It was the nice newly painted 10th Street Bridge a couple years ago. So that's, what we're doing. We're weaving in and out of traffic and putting tubes down. So the next type of count we have is a manual count, and it is just how it's right. So we do this from noon to 6. It's a 6-hour count. So what PennDOT wants is they want one peak time, either AM or PM. The reason why we have to do these manual counts is because there's some limitations to the machine counters as to how they work. You can't have congested corridors because the machine doesn't pick it up. It likes free-flowing traffic. So I guess the alternative to that, so instead of getting no data, you do a 6-hour classification day, and then PennDOT will take that number and then extrapolate it over the whole day. So obviously there's some limitations in that. We actually, and PennDOT, we used to do a lot of these. So in 2019, I think we did over 90 manual counts in our region. We would hire interns or temp staff to do them. So obviously, what you're getting, this is kind of unsafe. You're sitting there for 6 hours on the side of the road counting. You only get 6 hours of data, 24-hour period. You try to make it work. So fortunately, in this fall of 2022, PennDOT came around and they had a grant where they purchased this video system. And they demoed it through the state. And we loved it. We thought, oh my God, this is gonna, all the problems we have, this is gonna help us with producing manual counts and all that stuff. So through the AI, so in fall 2013, we finally put together a plan and got some monies, and we purchased 6 of these camera systems. So what they are doing, instead of how you saw the pictures of guys in the middle of the road, nailing tape and that kind of stuff. So this is all on the side of the road. Put a camera on a pole, put it up. And it doesn't matter if it's congested or not. And so this is how it works. And you can sit there and watch the video and class the vehicles. So the small cars are 2s. This big FedEx truck is a 12. So as the cars are coming down the road, it's putting them in these boxes. And so it's a 3-pronged. We love it. It increases our safety because guys are in the middle of the road. It reduces our manual counts, which, we like that because those are time consuming and not very effective. And again, it's simply, it's more data, more accurate data, because we can actually watch the video and see, oh, well, this is an odd number of a certain class. What happened here? So if there's a machine, we don't know that. Think of our rural areas. At 2:00 in the morning, there'll be a high number of big vehicles, and it's like, well, they're moving well, or whatever. So things like that we don't determine because no one's sitting there at 2:00 in the morning watching it, but we can watch the video. So we are super excited about this. This has helped us out incredibly. I think last year we only had 8 manual counts to do that we couldn't do with these cameras. So think about we're getting that much better data, that much safer. And it's a really cool system to watch and watch it work. So like I said earlier, our season counts starts on Monday. It ends the Thursday before Thanksgiving. These are our 348 locations in our region. Like I said, just because they're not a point on the map there doesn't mean they're not getting counted. There's other vendors. These vary, and usually the sites are on like 3 or 5 year intervals. And then this is kind of our typical count site, right? We have our map between 2 rows, and this is where we counted it. That's kind of the basic of it. Then, so you can get this data either through our website, which has all of our count stuff, all of our counts, all our count locations over the 5,000. Plus, on the right side, you can see it has PennDOT's statistics of the AADTs, truck percentages, weekday truck volume. So that's all of the stuff that's coming from our teams. So we have that. Unfortunately, it's only for the sites that we've counted since 1987. So PennDOT also has a site they call the Traffic Information Repository, or TIDR. So they obviously have all their sites. It's a little less user-friendly because you kind of have to know. There's a lot of data on there, so you kind of have to know what you're looking for, where ours is all it is traffic counts, traffic data. You can get through their site via our site. I mean, I'll walk some parts of ours, but theirs is nice too. This is something they never add. So ours actually predates theirs. So yeah, they're both useful. Any questions about citing traffic counting? I guess state region.
That's the side. And I do have a question, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if any of the commissioners or anybody listening, municipality, borough, or even PennDOT wanted to do a traffic study for a person, we're reaching out to you. Yes, sir. So just wanted to point that out. If any of your counties needed a traffic study done, reach out to court. I will share with you because this excites me. Unless you could tell, but when I was 1993, I took one of them job aptitude tests, and it's my guidance counselor said, bookbinder. I write down a bookbinder. What the hell's a bookbinder? You put books together. Well, then I'll sit in the trees there for 8 hours a day waiting for a mature whitetail to walk by. I think manual counting would be right up my alley.
Well, you say that, but if you get a couple days, then yeah, it doesn't get long. But we've been fortunate. Like I said, we've been counting for 3 years, so I'll stop now.
One trucking.
I'm looking
Steelers truck really. We'll take you to where, Chairman. I'll take you.
I'm good at one dump Chevy.
One Ford Taurus. I think that's all I got.
Well, I'm telling you, you guys are all like shit.
So yeah. So I'm going to do just a very brief transportation department update. So what you see on the screen right here, this is all of the plans that are active in our department right now. I know it gets probably a little, like we just heard about a plan left up. What's going on? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plans right now. For the NEVI plan, you'll see that says pause. Based on guidance from FHWA, the NEVI program has been paused and state plan approvals have been suspended until they are reviewed again by FHWA. So in a letter dated February 6th, the director of the Office of Project Development and Environmental Review at FHWA informed State Department of Transportation directors that the DOT leadership had decided to review NEVI program policies. That letter states FHWA is also immediately suspending the approval of all state electric vehicle infrastructure deployment plans for all fiscal years. So effective immediately, no new obligations may occur under the NEVI formula program until that updated final NEVI formula program guidance is issued. New state plans are submitted and approved. So SBC is waiting for this process to conclude before continuing with our planned public engagement efforts associated with PennDOT NEVI's community charging initiative. to ensure that there are no major changes in funding targets or guidance. The state has extended its comment period for MPOs to July 31st. So it's a month later than what we had previously based on this pause and review. You'll see for the other plans, the active transportation plan update, that's going to be coming before commission in June. That's currently kind of being finalized. It's going to go before the active transportation forum next month in March and then finish up. The human services coordinated plan, that's what we reviewed tonight. So that is formally adopted as of this meeting. And then we have two safety action planning efforts that I'm sure some of you have probably heard about. We have the Allegheny County Safety Action Plan. That is a federally funded through the Safe Streets for All program. And that specifically dives into Allegheny County. With the additional grant funding received, we're able to actually ultimately do design on 10 top identified corridors in the region. So we'll actually be able to kind of finish it out with a design and a plan for implementing those corridors and looking for additional money for implementation. And then concurrently, SPC is updating our regional safety action plan. That covers the entire 10-county region. Again, without that additional grant funding, we don't get to do the design, but we do pretty much everything else. We update the data. We look at quick build strategies for how to improve safety on our roadways. We're doing 2 rounds of public outreach. So that survey is currently live for both of those plans. You can find that on our website. You can take the survey, give your input. I sent emails to county planning staff at every county this morning with some upcoming public outreach sessions that we'll be doing. So mostly those are just like, we're going to kind of go to public libraries and kind of try to solicit input from residents that are coming through. So if any of you are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me, or again, someone from your county planning department should have that information. So I'm going to just keep going along, and I'm going to suggest that Chuck still has a presentation to get through with some more state budget updates. So I'd suggest I'm just going to kind of roll through and then maybe do any questions during other business, if that's all right with everyone. So the other update I have for you all is regarding TIP amendments. SPC received notice late last week from AMPO, which is the Association of NPOs, that an additional layer of review currently applies to approval of TIP amendments. And then we did receive follow-up from FHWA this morning confirming that. So this is just our current understanding of what those changes will be. The change requires division offices to forward all TIP amendments to the Office of General Counsel at USDOT for review before any approval actions can be taken. There are often changes in protocol between administrations, so we want to just make you aware of this because it may cause changes in how quickly TIP amendments are processed. Potential impacts to project schedules include project phase starts, contract awards, construction start dates, and the obligation of federal funds. So prior to this change, TIP amendments have been approved at the FHWA and PA Division Office with generally less than a week turnaround time. So we will continue to keep you appraised of the situation and report on any significant changes in the flow of federal funds to TIP projects. FHWA divisions are continuing to accept TIP amendment submissions. They've told us to keep them flowing. Like I said, they moved it to the Office of General Counsel, but they're committed to kind of keeping those moving quickly. So hopefully there won't be any pauses, just kind of wanted to make you aware in case there were. So for additional context, in 2024, the SPC region had 46 TIP amendments. And a TIP amendment is a program modification that maybe adds a new federally funded project, adds federal funds to a project that was previously fully state funded, adds or deletes a project phase that's greater than 7.5 million. Project phase costs that come in greater than that 7.5 million, or major scope changes. So anytime there's like a large cost increase, if it's a new project that got grant funding, so we're adding it to the 10, those are the situations we'll see amendments. Okay, so moving along, and like I said, we can go over if anyone has questions in their business, just to keep it flowing. So another update is before hopefully June, maybe April, May, we're looking at doing a refresh meeting with you guys on commission duties. So looking at like a reminder of the organization's mission, our purposes, the work we work on. I know that some of you never went through the onboarding process, the full onboarding. So this is kind of an opportunity to do that, but also just to do kind of a quick refresh and come together in a separate setting to go over that. And we're going to tie this in with our, believe it or not, 2027 long range plan update. So I think many of you have been through a long range plan update. For those that haven't, it's a long process. It's generally about 2 years. So we're getting ready to kick that off. Commissioners really shape the vision and the strategies and the goals of our long range plan. So it's very important for us to kind of explain this process to you, explain why it's important. You know, this is kind of the plan that overarches all their plans, that kind of informs everything that we do here in terms of what our goals and our vision is for this region. So we're hoping to come together, kind of explain that, kick that off, go over in general the commission and what it means to be a commissioner. So I believe Rich is going to be working with you guys to kind of feel out, you know, when and where that would be the best place to have that, but stay tuned. And then finally, we have 2 certification reviews coming up in the next few months. We have our triennial certification from Federal Transit. And that's going to take place in early June. We're doing desk review for that right now. So that's our certification that funds our Commute Info program and our 5307 funding that we receive. And then in late July, we're planning on having our Federal Highway and PennDOT certification review. And that basically certifies that we're spending all the money that falls under our UPWP that you all endorsed a few months back, and just make sure that, you know, we're operating and doing everything we need to do. So you'll probably see some information coming on those, but just kind of wanted to give you all an update that was coming. I think that's everything I have. So I'm going to pass it over to DJ. And like I said, I'm happy to answer questions about any of that. I just want to, you know, save your time and not make everyone stay here all day. So.
All right, DJ, you're up on state budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, everybody. Just to piggyback off of the many plans that Lily just mentioned to you that our department's working on, the one that was under my department's purview was the climate action plan. We did receive notice from the 1 weeks ago to pause work on that project, and we have done that. So the practical application of that for all of you means that we're not doing the public engagement that we were planning. We were doing meetings in Northern Shipyard counties. Those have been canceled for the time being. We are also stopping all of our work on that CPRG grant, and we'll advise all of you if that changes. As Rich mentioned, he was up in Harrisburg for the governor's budget address, and we thought this would be a good opportunity for all of you to hear the latest on the state budget, mostly as it relates to your responsibilities here, but also just in general. And so I believe, Chuck, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great. So Chuck Poling is online, and he's going to go through a presentation on state budget update.
Yeah, that's great. And DJ, if you bring the PowerPoint up, and I'll just tell you go from page to page. But thank you all for the opportunity for Pam Snyder, myself, and Carrie Lewis Del Rosso to provide you a brief update on the governor's proposal. You know, things are moving forward. There have been budget hearings. We've been trying to provide updates to the SBC staff, and we will continue to do that. I just wanted to make certain that you know that we wanted to hone in on the topics of particular interest to the SBC, because we only have 5 to 10 minutes. We did provide a complete review to the SBC staff, and please let us know if you need a more comprehensive review after this PowerPoint presentation. There are some things that obviously you're interested in. The line item in the budget for partnerships for regional economic performance, $10.8 million, that's been flat. So we could talk about all those things, but we wanted to segue immediately over to this general overview. And we're going to get into this in great depth in a few minutes, and hopefully not too great a depth. But again, the governor's proposed increase for transportation funding, not just for transit, for roads and bridges, to address some of the concerns that Councilwoman Warwick mentioned earlier in the meeting. Also, things like accelerating the corporate net income tax cuts, you know, that was to be phased down from 9.9% to 4.9% in 2031. The governor proposed accelerating that to 2029. Eliminating the Delaware loophole, which is going to be controversial, and we'll have to see how that plays out. The creation of a new $50 million PA innovation program, and the Pennsylvania Regional Economic Competitive Challenge, which I think Carrie's going to talk about. And then finally, a proposal to increase the minimum wage to $15. We can go to the next slide. Then things about tax credits. streamlining tax credits. There's a lot to be addressed with tax credits. Some tax credits they want to eliminate, like the Riverfront Development Tax Credit, but really making sure that the tax credits are most effective and address the needs of the general population, especially economic development. Increasing funding for marketing to attract business programs, $50 million, going to talk about $1 million to restore bad housing stock, which replaces the whole homes program that was been in existence previously. Additional home buyer grants, and then the legalization of recreational marijuana, which would projected to generate about $536 million. We'll see if that has any support in the legislature. And then the skill games being legalized, which would generate projected $368 million. So, but one of the top issues I think you are all interested in probably is public transit funding, roads and bridges funding. The governor is proposing, similar to what he did last year, an increase of the state sales tax that's dedicated for transit by 1.75%, which would generate this year about $292 million and growing over time to $330 million. Just want you to know there is an effort being made. A coalition is being built from the transit agencies across the state, including the Pennsylvania Public Transit Authority, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, and some of your local transit authorities. And I think the coalition would include business, labor, things like the United Way, community groups, universities, et cetera, to advocate on behalf of this. I know that there are going to be some concerns about funding levels. We can talk about that in a minute, and how the money is going to be distributed. But I just wanted to make sure you were aware that there is going to be that effort. And then with roads and bridge funding, as you guys probably know, there's been an effort to reduce the amount from the motor license fund that's being used to finance state police. Slowly, it's been reduced, not as quickly as we would like. So, but the governor proposed again, shifting about $50 million from the motor license fund to finance the state police, take it over to the general fund, and then provide in the next 5 years, the state police will be provided, support will be provided all out of the general fund and not from the motor license fund, which will give more money for roads and bridges construction. Finally, with respect to transportation, I just want to mention almost all of you, except for Greene County, has a transit authority in your jurisdiction you're involved with. The increase would be approximately 22%. We've been waiting with PennDOT to give us some actual dollar figures. As soon as that's available, we'll let you know. There are 32 transit agencies across the state. SEPTA and Pittsburgh Regional Transit are two. But I just want to make sure everyone understands these smaller transit authorities do get significant dollars. There have been some questions in the budget hearing last week, the state budget hearing last week with PennDOT about how that money is distributed. That formula for distribution is established by the General Assembly. I know Representative Kale from Beaver County, Representative Mostello from Butler County, Representative Nelson from Westmoreland County questioned about the distribution because there are questions about why does all this money go to SEPTA, Pittsburgh Regional Transit. Well, one of the reasons that's where the ridership is. But that's going to be something that's going to be discussed too. So I can answer any questions you may have, but why don't we leave the questions to the end on transportation, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Carrie Lewis Del Rosa, to talk a little bit about some of the tax changes and try to get this through as quickly as possible so I can answer any questions you may have. Carrie?
You can put the slide to proposed state tax changes up.
Excellent.
Okay, so this budget cut, sorry. It's working? Okay, so thanks everyone. The proposed state tax changes, budget cuts corporate taxes by nearly $1.4 billion in 2025-26 and by $10.5 billion through 2029-30. Closes tax loopholes, as it's stated, eliminates 3 separate business taxes for financial institutions to ensure equity with other businesses under CNIT. And then it proposes to regulate and tax skill gains and BGTs at the same rate, allowing 30,000 combined BGTs and skill gains in the Commonwealth to be taxed. That seems to be the hot button topic, and we are going to talk a little bit about more of that later. Next slide. Another focus this year, as it was last year as well, is economic development, job creation, and innovation. Key innovation, the line item, the $50 billion in DCED,
would create, include one-time $30 million to spur life sciences job growth and innovation through coordination among research universities to assist businesses bringing cutting edge technology to market. So last year this was proposed and it was shut down in negotiation. So we're throwing it in again. It also invests an additional $13 million at ag. Ag creates and launches the Pennsylvania Regional Economic Competitive Challenge, which invests $3.5 billion. A lot of focus when the governor spoke was on Pennsylvania business attraction and expansion through Pennsylvania business. As we know here in Southwestern Pennsylvania, we're a sponge for it, we're looking for it. So some of these items that he added would definitely enhance and help Southwestern Pennsylvania. Next slide. Again, reforming the tax credits that businesses will fully utilize. That seems to be one of the things that we're missing is that we have these tax credit programs out there and people are not taking advantage of them. So there's a list here of them that you can look at. And then if there's any questions, we can have these conversations too at the end. The most important is, I think, the one at the bottom, create the new advanced VA tax credit, which is a $10 million flexible tax credit to secure important deals and incentivize higher paying jobs. I think the manufacturing industry is looking for that sort of flexibility. So this might be one that's going to be really targeted and would be helpful. Next slide. The next thing is REMAP, the Resource Evaluation and Mission Alignment Project, which was done with DCED. This budget proposes to eliminate 3 tax credit programs, which are duplicate of other programs, and replaces them with 1 tax credit program aimed specifically at creating jobs within the Commonwealth. 2025 budget repeals the waterfront development tax credit, the video game development tax credit, and the manufacturing tax credit. And then again, like I said in the previous slide, it creates the advanced PA tax credit which is a new $10 million tax credit to provide more flexibility. And also just to give REMAP was basically done to look at the operations in DCD and kind of get rid of the old programs, if that makes sense. Next slide, addressing critical housing needs. As we know, that the governor signed an executive order to create Pennsylvania's first comprehensive housing plan, provided $50 million to DCD to restore the Commonwealth's housing stock. This is in the budget this year again, and the governor is looking for, hopefully, the House and the Senate to agree on this and have it as well. Next, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Pam Snyder, my colleague, talking about legalizing adult use cannabis.
Thank you, Carrie. Next slide. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. The governor has proposed to legalize adult use cannabis in this year's budget. This has been talked about for several budget cycles. His initiative would give immediate expungement of the records to those who have been convicted of only a possession-related offense, and it will provide money to restore justice initiatives for adult use cannabis. And it would also provide $25 million to new and small businesses attempting to enter the new marketplace. The governor's position is that 4 out of the 6 states that touch Pennsylvania either already have legal cannabis or in the process of implementing that, and that Pennsylvanians are just traveling across state lines to get their cannabis. We all know this is controversial. We expect it to pass the House, probably not the Senate. Bills have been introduced in both chambers right now, and this will be part of the budget negotiation process. Next slide, please. Now, here's some existing programs that are of interest to you, PA sites. We all know how important those are that program is to all of our counties. And he is proposing another $400 million over 3 years, 2024 through 2035, $125 million through 2025, 2026, and $175 million through 2026 and 2027, and $100 million through that process. The DCED multimodal grants, as you heard Chuck earlier, that some were awarded today. The next round of applications begins and opens on March 1st. And we all know how important those are to all of you too. Now, broadband, here we go. We all know how important this is to all of us. So, as you know, under the Biden administration, when the infrastructure bill was passed, $42.45 billion was allocated for broadband. Pennsylvania was slated to get about $1.2 billion of that money. However, on President Trump's first day, he signed an executive order pausing all of that funding. The executive order mandates that federal agencies review all the processes, policies, and programs related to these funds and submit a report back to him within 90 days. So the future of this program will depend on the outcomes of those reviews and any policy decisions are made. Hopefully, we will be able to get that money released. Right now, I can tell you what the Pennsylvania Broadband Development Authority is in the process of doing. The first round, it says here the application period is open. That is not accurate. I apologize for that. The first round closed on February 7th. And right now, the authority is they're currently reviewing all of the applications. The second round opens on April 1st. We suggest, because this is such an important issue to all of you, that SPC drafts a letter and hopefully signed by all of the commissioners from all of the counties and the city of Pittsburgh, and write to all your congressmen and senators and the administration explaining how important this is and how this funding needs to move forward. With that, we will take any questions.
Can we get examples of what you'd like us to say and what all the funding is that was cut?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Kevin.
I do apologize. I'm on the road. Any of the funding, the list of funding that has been eliminated or paused would be great. And then any statement that we need to deliver from SPC.
Yes, we really feel that, you should be reaching out to all of the congressmen that represents the SPC area, your U.S. senators, and the administration.
NACO has
And we could be,
NACO has an
Go ahead,
event
Kevin.
LegCon this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So a chance that we get that information before that would be helpful. Thank you.
So one thing we talked about prior to the meeting today is just one thing we talked about prior to the meeting today was drafting a letter that would come from SPC and all your commissioners regarding, the funding for broadband. That was the one priority that we want to make sure that your senators and your Congress they know that is a high priority, especially in rural Pennsylvania and the 10-county region. So if you'd like us, Chuck and I, Chips and Pam, to work on it and help do the letter, drafting that, so we can convince that way then it can go to people like Mike Kelly, John Joyce, everyone, Guy, it should really come from both of them. The other thing that, we can do, and I have a list here. This is kind of like the tracking budget. I highlighted all the increases. This is the proposed. If your team wants to make a copy of that, it's online essentially, but it's everything that's being proposed in the state budget right now by Governor Shapiro, and then when negotiations start, if any of these kind of you look attractive to you, like some of the programs that they're offering, I think you probably want to lobby for them as well. Sure.
This is Chuck. One thing I want to encourage, Rich made this earlier about the plans of SPC to come to Harrisburg on May 5th and 6th. Just so you are aware, from the day after the budget was announced until May 5th, that was February 5th until May 5th, the legislature, House and Senate, are going to be in session only 1 week when both the House and Senate session. So everybody in the world is going to try to come up there the week of the 5th and 6th. I still believe you should come up there, but I would encourage you to get your room reservations as soon as possible. But also we need to get together and decide the priorities and start scheduling the meetings that you would like to engage in with your local legislators, legislative leadership, the administration as soon as possible, because it's going to be a very intense period of time.
Yeah, Chuck, thanks for that reminder because I think that's important. So please, have a book booms. Thank you for coming here. So let's do it. I just want to ask, Commissioner Rose brought it up, that the only communications that we received from the administration about changes to funding programs are the ones that Lily and I outlined to you earlier. We can certainly provide those to anybody so we can get the fund. I know there are lots of discussions happening about several sorts of being the only ones that we ever see any of communication of.
Our best to put something in the comment. She want to say it or does she want me to?
Yes, it's online.
Laura. I'm Sherry. I'm sure. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. No, it's okay. That's okay. I'm responding back.
Sort of. What you would all speak earlier. Sorry. I was just.
Okay. What's the question? I'm sorry. I think she just had a comment.
Just read it.
Having a draft template for all the contacts of where we need to send would be very helpful. Okay, that's fine. I think that, basically it would have to come from all of you, like assigned to have that kind of formatting.
And maybe with the letter that you mentioned, the suggestion would be, we were so adamant all last year and what we were asking for, and it looked like the plan that everybody submitted is something that everybody supports. So maybe the letter is keep things, approve what we already submitted for. That might be
think
a
it
way,
also,
way to do that.
if we don't have the broadband that we are expected to get, it will slow development in the state, especially in Swedish.
So are you suggesting a letter just on broadband, or Rich, were you suggesting something else? And I was
Other funding.
other funding.
So at least the broadband, I think.
That's one.
Well, then maybe this group needs to have a motion to approve sending a letter on the broadband. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Without, wait, but
I think we're just gonna sit on it, take it under consideration, and then you can bring it back to the board at that time.
Yeah, this is Chuck again. Why don't we draft something on broadband? Broadband's the most immediate thing because, as Pam said, the 90-day hold on broadband. Why don't we just draft something? We'll provide it to Rich and the SBC staff, and then you guys decide what you want to do.
So would you bring it back at the March meeting, or would we have a March meeting? Right?
okay, maybe.
By that time, you're past the 90 days. Aren't you to the 90 days?
Can even
Notes.
understand now.
The 90 days should end April 20th. You could have a special meeting. We could with the
Or we send out an email.
It just sits
Yeah, we send a communication out.
right.
Yeah, I think we can circulate that, say, to the email bill. Then bring it back to April and acknowledge that.
So we'll start with the draft as our end and then get it to you. Okay.
That's what we're waiting on.
Right on it.
I can't get up to the is everybody all right with that? Comfortable? We can, we'll draft something. We'll have staff here look at it. And then pick it out to check some temperatures. And then we can always do it, vote online and then acknowledge it in a future meeting here.
I don't see anything wrong with Dusty's suggestion, because all we're doing is saying if we're making a motion that something should be sent, but we haven't agreed necessarily what that is yet. Maybe you should.
I'll second our motion that we agree something should be sent about.
Subject to you're saying subject to everyone with staff and SBC's approval. Are you saying that Rich and his team can send out what he's willing to send? Is that what? And then subject to everyone's final approval. But I think that because we're not having a meeting in the interim, I'd rather see us all at the table say, yeah, we agree, we should send something in and something to broadband.
So, Gene, other feedback? We have a suggestion on the floor. Dusty, I would add, we have to make a motion to add an agenda item. This is not an agenda item.
It's not much other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just suggesting that because that's when I heard Carrie ask and heard Grape ask that some sort of letter be sent to urge the reinstatement of broadband as it's only paused.
Right. And it's just it would, I think, help in a more specific
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
One of my concerns is I know everyone is concerned about broadband. I know individually some people are more concerned about other issues of cut funding. I think that there should be some either included as point of pausing or cutting funding, leave it general, because it does affect many of our counties in the Southwest as well. So some people had some projects that were halfway through. Some people were starting projects. It is going to impact us. So even though we don't relate, like whether it's, electric vehicle or chargers or whatever it is, I think that anytime you mess with funding that's already it's going to cause a bigger problem. And I'd like that in the letter somehow.
Noted.
I think there's a letter on that side. I think that a minimum, it's a separate letter. If that's actually going to happen, I don't know, but that's something because it's a totally different area. They haven't been go on, right? And then the other thing here is that a letter that we undertake here?
So would it be possible to, because I just sort of to that point, like everyone's going to have sort of their own things, just sort of let everyone digest this for, just, I don't know, a week or however long. And then folks can reach out and be like, look, these are big priority, these are my whatever top three, with the understanding that everyone knows that broadband is most likely in the top three for lots of us. But and then kind of look at that to see what we might, as a body, be wanting to address. You know what I mean? If there are like some trends, like if 2/3 of the people were worried about X.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say, but you did a much better job.
Well, again, as Chuck said, we could draft a letter that would be a little bit more generic about all the federal funding and let you folks look at it and discuss it and then go from there.
I think as we're speaking as one region, one voice, somewhat generic and supportive of the funding would be the best way to go as a region or as SPC. If you as an elected official or if you as an individual county want to get into the weeds on how that's going to impact you or your projects, by all means, go ahead and do that on your own. But I think it's we're speaking as we're united, it should be more probably general, but that's just my 2 cents.
Mr. Chair, and speaking with staff just briefly, if I may, this is Jen Lickback. You can't see me online. We would like just to take a step back and just, if we may, review some of our guidance because we as an entity, we have to be very careful how we communicate with our federal agencies regarding federal funding. We're not permitted to lobby for federal funding. It becomes a little bit more difficult. Now, because individual counties are permitted to do so, but as an entity in this commission, we have certain restrictions. We would like to make sure we clarify that in any capacity so we are meeting all of our guidelines and regulations. So if we may have that ability, I would appreciate that. Mr. Chair.
Appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. She'd still like a drafted letter and we'll just send it to you and then you can do with it what you want. And then
Yeah, for review. You guys haven't.
Yes.
All right, any other comments on that topic?
Well, I just want to say about broadband. Ed County's future depends on broadband. We've got 8,000 people out there. Residents that don't have broadband. So I think you got to focus on that. That's the first thing. If we have people now that are coming to the table, some of the bigger players are willing to
install this and get this out to the area that we don't have it. It's gonna set us back forever if we don't get it. Can't compete without it. Got a lot of broadband in the county, but certain areas we need it.
Thank you, Vince. Any other comments?
One last thing you were talking about. This is the one thing it seems like everybody in this room agrees on needs to happen, full stop, right? Like the federal funding on the highway and transit side, I think we all agree we want the money back. But in terms of like specific project priorities, this is the one that everybody is behind. So, yeah, let's talk about the other things when we can talk about the other things. This in particular doesn't deserve its own letter.
All right, moving along to other business.
No, just Rich.
No.
If there's any questions from the other, I can take them.
Help.
All right, as it relates to the letter, we're just waiting for Buchanan out and we can get something out to you all later.
Yeah, and you can all vote on it. We put that into bylaws, right? If it's necessary. Yeah, you know, electronically or
Yes.
anywhere else. You don't need to vote today. So that's.
All right, we just want to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's after we get the letter, and then we can kick something out later and acknowledge it at a future meeting. I always open it up at the end of every meeting to counties and commissioners, good, the bad, the ugly, any comments, anything from the good of the order, planning directors, agencies. Always rather one of our lengthier meetings, but appreciate your patience and your attentiveness. There's nothing to come before the board. Our next meeting is April 28th, 2025. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion. Second. Thank you. All in favor? All right. Good evening. Safe travels.